Hey, you guys. So, I want to welcome you guys all on and to hear more about Chris's story. I have gotten such a huge response after posting his testimonial yesterday, the before and after pictures of him, the way he's been eating and how he's changed his diet and how he's lost, like 38 pounds, I believe it was that you've
Mhm.
lost. You've came off of 5 medications, and I just want to share with you guys. Hey, Juju! Oh my gosh, I'm so excited!
Hey Juju.
And so I'm just so excited to share this with just everybody because it's a lot changing how you eat, what how how this works for your body, tailoring it for you and all of that fun stuff. So I'm gonna ask him a few questions, and I'm gonna let him elaborate so that he can explain it because he's definitely been sticking to this, and doing this since the beginning of April, I believe it was, and it's definitely made night and day difference in results. And so I just want to thank you guys so much for all of the interest in this. And I just know Chris is excited to share his story. And so, Chris, just tell us a little bit like what got you started to doing this? Like why did you want to do this?
So you're talking about a lifetime of stuff that I'm going to try to jam into this short video. Keep in mind, I'm the novice. My wife, my beautiful wife, is the professional, so I'm not as quick as she is on the video stuff. But this is my first one, by the way. So thanks for viewing and thanks for all the wonderful comments and people's just interest in a success story. And that's really why I wanted to post it, just because it's kind of a weird time right now, and I just wanted something for somebody to have hope in for themselves for through my story. But my story goes back to childhood. I'm sure a lot of people that have dealt with weight issues, it probably started then. I've always been an emotional eater. I've always been overweight. I basically, through my childhood, had an experience where I had to go to like a university study course, and it was the red light, green light diet. I'm sure anybody that's been overweight all their life knows what that is. And basically, it was just teaching you to log your food and to track your food that you eat, whether it's good, okay, or bad. But it was still following the traditional ADA and AHA diets. And but it was just saying track your food. So tracking food did help me lose weight as a child. And I just never carried that habit over because I'd rather eat. I'm a very food oriented person. I love to cook. You've probably seen some of my things on Facebook where my wife posts where I'm doing butts or barbecue or whatever, you know. So I love cooking. I'm the cook in the house, and my family's always had a love for cooking, so that's where I've always gotten that from. But through that, I also developed a love for eating, and it was always eating the wrong stuff. But the funny part for me was following the guidelines that they give you in the American diet, and I never really lost weight unless I tracked my food, of course, and before it was really bad off. So through high school, I had a growth spurt. I got taller, and that helped thin me out a little bit. But I didn't lose any weight through my diet. It was just hormones and growing taller. So as an adult, from that point on, I slowly gained more weight. Slowly, it was over time. It was just over time. And as I got into my 20s and 30s, well, actually, I went to 40 years old. I made it to 40 years old before I realized that I was a picture of perfect health by my numbers, my blood work. And the when it developed was when I was 40. So when I hit 40, ironically enough, all my numbers changed for the worse. It started with high blood pressure, and it developed into high cholesterol. It developed into type 2 diabetes. It developed into fatty liver. So if you see the trend there, you can see that the American diet and the medicine that they give you isn't really to save your life. It's to prolong it as long as they can. It's not a very positive outlook. And so through that experience, it just started wearing on me, and I um, wasn't really confident in that way of doing it, you know. But I did it, and then I figured, well, I'll just eat whatever I want because the medicine's taking care of it.
Hmm.
Most of the guys I know, that's what they do. I know people that are physically fit that have high cholesterol, and they do the same thing. Oh, the medicine's helping. I'm in good shape. But it's no telling what's going on inside, so you could be potentially setting yourself up for risk. So through that, several years ago, I think four maybe to be exact, Shamika's been a light in my life. We've been together forever, and we went through all the good stuff together. We went through all the bad stuff together, and we were good people and we were bad people. And through one of her work events, she came to know Jesus Christ and brought it into our household. And at the time, I wasn't hearing it. I'm a hardcore biker guy. I'm not doing that. I'm an ex rock star. We don't do that. And so I actually told her that we don't do that. In this household, we don't do that. And but through her light and hope and things that she was bringing into the house, it led me to my salvation. And so similar to what her medical history did, that's what this did. So she led me to, God used her to lead me to salvation. And through that and getting to know Christ a little more, uh, I decided to take initiative. And I decided I wasn't going to let someone else decide my fate. Now that came from the hybrid of Shamika's health issues. I'm not sure if you know, but she was diagnosed with MS. She has things like that going on. And through that experience, we realized, because neither one of us had a true chronic, something we're going to have to live with illness. And when she was diagnosed with that, we didn't know. We didn't know what was going on or how to, we just figured the doctors would tell us what to do.
Right.
And we took that as the gospel of what's going on. And it ended up that they don't know what's best for you. And through her experience with MS and just basically throwing treatments at the wall to decide what's best for you, we decided to go to a specialist. And the specialist actually got us on the right track with our medications and things like that. But through that experience of being our own advocates or being her advocate, we decided that that's the way we're going to approach our health from now on. Is we're going to research things. We're not going to take the doctor's word for it. We're just, we're going to take what they say as a advisement, which that's all it is. And then we're going to research it ourselves and come up with the best scenario that works best for us and pray on it and decide those things as we see fit and not just let them dictate what they're going to do to us. So through that, her specialist for the MS clinic actually said, well, we are practicing medicine.
Yeah.
So there are things out there that they don't even know, and they don't know why they work, and they don't, they just go by the general rule of what works for the most of the population. So for me, that following that aspect of just doing what the doctor says led me to metabolic disorder. I was doing the diets that they told me to do. I was eating the way they told me to eat. But it just led me down a path of all those issues that I named off. So I was on 5 medications for that time frame. And through Shamika's experience with some of her other medications and through my experience with my medications, once a quarter, I was having to check my my bin number on my prescriptions to see if they had cancer-causing agents in them because they're coming from China. And there's issues with that sometimes. And so they have things in it that they shouldn't have in it. So I was like, wait a minute, this is stupid. Well, then, of course, COVID hits, and I'm like, okay, well, this is really stupid. So I'm going to step back, analyze my situation. I'm going to pray on it. I'm going to see how I feel led to approach this. And I was just sick of everybody else having my fate in their hands. So by taking that initiative, I was complaining about Facebook, as probably most husbands do, about the negativity and the things that are on there. Well, Shamika suggested, once again, my light and the light in my darkness. Hey, why don't you look at some of the positive things on Facebook, like some of the groups? Obviously, you guys know she's in groups. She has her own groups. She is members of all different types of groups with her situations. So she found one that pertained to my situation. It was called Reversing Type 2 Diabetes. So I applied for the group, answered a couple of questions, and they put me in their group. So as I'm learning through that group, I was going through and reading all the posts and looking at the food lists and all those things. So keep in mind, this was all through my own, being my own advocate. And when I had a question, I looked it up on the group, or I even went outside and looked on a general browser to see what they said, right? So I'm trying to get all these different opinions on it. So it wasn't just one-sided. And I wanted it to be a sound decision. So for you guys out there that have questions, like serious questions, I'm not a doctor. I never claimed to be. I'm not even that smart without God's leadership. So, but through this experience, it's taught me a lot about doing that. So please, by all means, if you have a question that's a little more outside my expertise, look it up. Just research it. Be your own advocate. In my situation, the group I'm in is Reversing Type 2 Diabetes. So it specifically deals with type 2 diabetics. So that may not be exactly your situation, but it may be, some of this information may be able to help you. Um, but basically, it's a low carb, high fat diet with high protein. In my situation, I had to up the protein. But it's mostly protein. I try to stay generally starting out under 30 grams of carbs, and and that helped me lose most of the weight. It's just watching what I was eating. I was tracking my meals on Carb Manager. It's a free app. There's a pay app that's really cheap as well that will allow you to get even more detailed if you want to go that far. But being type 2 diabetic, I had to track my sugars. And so that was basically what they teach you is not to really so much focus on sugar itself, right? Like ingesting sugar, but thinking about yourself as insulin resistant as a type 2 diabetic. So your body's built up resistance. Well, that's what the metabolic syndrome does. Over time, you develop this insulin resistance, which in turn turns you diabetic. So with that being said, I had to look at it from that aspect, and it helped enlighten me a little bit. So when I first got into this, learning about this way of eating, basically, I had to change my whole mindset because I was trained, like I said, having weight issues younger, they teach you from a young age, do this, do this, do this, and you'll be fine. And I wasn't. It developed into the situation I was having recently with all the meds and all that stuff. So by the end of it, it it really confused me. My mind was blown, and everything was magic at the beginning because it's like, man, this really works. How does this work? This is crazy. This is totally opposite of what they're saying. And
you had results 24
yeah,
hours.
24 hours. My sugar was different. My sugar levels were different.
Mm-hmm.
About 3 days in, I was really inflamed, as you can imagine, the way the body reacts to sugar and fats and all that simultaneously when they're all in your system at the same time. My body was really inflamed. I didn't even know that until I started this. And 3, 4 days in, I could breathe. It's like my whole body relaxed. So all your arteries and all that, it just was gone. It was like just amazing. It was, I mean, it literally felt like a miracle. And so I hadn't felt human or well in a long time. And 3 days in, and I'm already feeling halfway there. So it was quite miraculous as far as the amount of time that it took to see the results. Again, in my situation, I kind of used myself as a guinea pig. I experimented because a lot of doctors don't agree with this. It's outside of what they were taught, so it's completely understandable. And I'm not saying quit your doctor, but in my case, I didn't feel like my doctor would be accepting of the seriousness of the diet or the way of eating. So I kind of did my own thing. Now I watched everything like a hawk. I made sure that things were in check and monitored. My wife obviously helped me with some of those things to make sure that she was in the medical field, so she knows a little bit about stuff. So she was able to help me with some of those things that she was familiar with, and just make sure I wasn't doing anything too stupid. So like again, I was my own advocate. I researched it. I looked at the body's effect by these things, and then as I started doing them, I monitored everything really closely.
So what do you eat during the day? Like what does a normal day look like for you as far as meals go? And how do you decide how many carbs you're going to take in and all of that?
Well, so some of those questions are better answered when you start researching this because that's what I had to do. As I was researching, I just started following a food list, approved food list, and staying under 30 grams of carbs. That's the beginning of it. And that's how I started blind and just went into it that way. I ate what was on the food approved list, but that doesn't mean that what was approved wasn't going to spike my sugar because we're all different. We all respond to things differently. So I was doing proteins and vegetables and 30 grams of carbs and staying at or under 30 grams of carbs immediately started dropping weight. So the whole point of it is this way of eating isn't new. It's been around for a long time. You've probably heard of high protein or Atkins or keto. There's always these commercial names for the diet or for the way of eating. And it's not a diet. It's a definite mind change and a way of eating, a way of life. But there's a bunch of names for it. But it is putting you into a ketogenic status. So put your body into burning fat rather than sugar. So the body, like I said, I'm not a professional. I just want to keep reiterating that because You got to do your research and due diligence for your body type and the things that you're experiencing. I had to go with what I was experiencing, and I was already in full stages of metabolic syndrome. So Juju wants to know type of menu, a 1 day menu. It's really, like I said, up to your situation. When I started, you're blind. You don't really know because you don't know, and you're not as schooled and studied as what you would like to be going into it. So I started with the proteins. I tried. I think I was from the beginning only doing 2 meals a day, just because that felt natural to me. I'm not. I don't have to have breakfast. I'm not. I don't crave breakfast like that all the time. So I would generally start 11:30 to for lunch, and then about 6 for dinner. So I'd cut off at 6 for dinner. So with that being said, that was natural to me. So it may be different for you. You may respond better from having a breakfast and a dinner, or a breakfast and a lunch with no dinner. It depends on your body and what you are accustomed to and what you appreciate. For me, I was kind of accidentally intermittent fasting, so I didn't even know about intermittent fasting at that point, and I was still losing the weight. So when you put your body into a ketogenic status, it starts burning fat. The body is built to burn carbs and sugars for energy. That's the way your body traditionally works. By cutting out those things and staying under a certain amount of carbohydrates, I don't eat any sugar products, but my carbs consist of good carbs like vegetables, fruit, not even fruits. I couldn't even have fruits at the beginning until I got my sugar managed. So again, this is for type 2 diabetes, for somebody without diabetes, but you still feel you're developing. If you have any of the issues I mentioned, high blood pressure, cholesterol, all that stuff, you're developing
Almost like
a
pre-diabetic.
metabolic issue. Okay, your body, you're turning your body into where it doesn't metabolize properly if you're starting to have those issues. So I know just from my personal experience that that's what was happening to me. So if you catch it early and you're not pre-diabetic or diabetic, you can follow a ketogenic diet, and you should be okay with that. Again, research it, make sure, follow up with your doctor by all means. I had to kind of do my own thing and come off my medicines the way that I did because I felt comfortable with that. I just felt led to do that. And in the end, it still took, my doctor about had a heart attack when he saw my blood work. Like this most recent blood work, he couldn't believe it. He kept looking at the lab results to see if they were fake. Like I went to have a mock lab make up the results to trick him, right? And no offense to him, he's a great doctor, and I've been with him for years. But to his credit, he saw it and he kept reassuring himself that this was real, this wasn't fake. And he said, "Okay, well, we'll check it in 3 more months and see what you're doing, right?" And so he was open minded because he's practicing, right? He's practicing medicine, not a perfect doctor. So he knew that there are things out there that he can't explain. So he was willing to be open enough. But some doctors are gonna completely steer you away from these types of diets, or excuse me, these ways of eating. It's not a diet; it's a life change.
Oh yeah.
And with me being type 2, I can't go back to the old way of eating. I can't go back to all the carbs and things like that. But I can have a reward meal. Actually, after we got my blood work, we said, let's try a reward meal. Let's go get Mexican.
Ooh.
All the carbs in Mexican. That should really test your system.
Our favorite.
And that is one of my favorite food groups or food types. And we went there, and my sugar shot up higher than it's ever been. Even when I was diabetic, it was not this high. It wasn't fatal or anything like that, but it was really high, enough for me to physically notice.
Wasn't it like 232?
I think it topped out at 225 or 250.
That's
and
insane.
On meds, the worst of my diabetics, I was hitting 140, or my worst part of my diabetes. I was averaging 140, 150, 160 on med, fully treated. Without meds, on just changing the way I'm eating. No, I'm not really any exercise. We get it in when we can, but nothing. I don't have a regimen or anything that I follow for that. It's just strictly through diet. So that led me to bringing my sugars down, like within the first 2-3 days, a week, down into normal levels, like what a normal non-diabetic would have. The highest it would get was into the 120s and 130s, sometimes 140. 140 is that area where if you are at 140 for a long period of time, you're going to I'm talking about blood glucose, by the way, your sugar levels. If you're at 140 for a long period of time, you're going to start damaging organs. And that's basically what I was doing. Even with the meds, I was still damaging my organs. So that's what led me to this, being my own advocate, issues with medicines, and through Shamika's experience with some of her things, we just said, you know what, I just said I don't want to do this anymore. And with a little bit of my history, with you knowing that I love food and being an emotional eater, you know how hard that is, because we all, if we love food that much, it's generally something underlying that causes that. If you're there, just to give you hope, there is hope, and it was really hard for me, and like I said, I could not have done this without my salvation coming first. And if God wasn't in my life and leading me in this, I'm not strong enough. I love food. And anytime something was going wrong at work, or me and Shamika would have those traditional married couple stuff. We've been together for a long time and we go through that. I'm eating it. I'm eating food to kind of curb my issues, and kind of like an addict would a drug, right? That's my addiction, was food. And so this really helped me, and it helped me go down the right path. So for me, just to answer Juju's question about what a one day looks like, pick a 2 meals, and it's usually a 16-8 fast, right? So you can eat within an 8 hour period, not eat all 8 hours. You still have to be responsible of what you're eating, and watch the portioning and stuff, because you can't just throw a bunch of stuff down at one sitting and expect to have the same results. So I was having 2 meals a day just naturally, because that's the way it worked into my schedule and the way I felt comfortable with it. So I was eating lunch at 11:30, dinner at 6, all home cooked meals,
Yeah.
Foods from home, and it's generally a protein, some kind of meat, and a vegetable, and that's pretty much it. And we don't
So like steak and chicken is pretty much, well, staples for our menu items.
eggs,
Yeah, eggs.
cheeses, fats. You can
Definitely
have fats,
cheeses.
so you can add, because a lot of the fats that you eat have protein. So
The beef jerky. There's
Slim
one
Jims,
Slim Jim
and
type things.
you got to read the labels.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of it. But there are a lot of hidden sugars, and
Yeah.
that's what the issue I was having. So again, my experience is strictly with type 2 diabetes, and how I helped this way of eating helped me reverse that. Outside of diabetes, I still think if you're having the metabolic issues and high blood pressure and cholesterol and all those things adding up, it's a short period of time. And do you have the middle weight, the midriff weight, in your body type? Those things it's gonna lead you down that type 2 path. So if you can catch it early and control your eating before your sugars become an issue, again, metabolic syndrome is just the insulin resistance, and your insulin stays high, so your body doesn't know what to do with it, and it starts doing all this other stuff. So what you're doing when you put yourself in the ketogenic state is burning fat instead of sugar. Now, right now, to this day, if I eat sugar, my body's going to immediately convert back to sugar.
Yeah.
As soon as that sugar is burned, then it will go back to burning fat. It's going to be a little easier for me, because I'm in and out of ketogenic state pretty regular. Stay in it more than I'm not, just because I don't want to go back there, and I don't want to fight with that. I will warn you that I don't know, keto is kind of popular, so you might have looked some stuff up and seen about keto flu. From the group that I'm in, they say that it takes about 30 hours to get your body into ketosis. And that's 30 hours of basically following the 30 carbs or less a day, plus the protein and fats that you're taking in. So once you're in ketosis, your body starts burning that fat. Well, imagine changing the fuel that you're burning in your car. We found out the hard way, when you put diesel in a regular fueled vehicle,
Doesn't
it
work.
doesn't run very well, and it kind of craps out on you. So you have to get it fixed. Well, changing your body's fuel system will do that too, and so they call it the keto flu, or ketogenic flu, and it's not anything major. I felt like crap. I was moody. I was, in a weird funk for a minute, but it took me about a week and a half to kind of get past that and go, okay, now I see the benefit, right? So know that if you're a cold turkey like me, I used to smoke. I smoked for most of my childhood and into my adult years, and quit that cold turkey. I'm just a cold turkey kind of person, so I'm all or nothing. Is part of my nature, and so that is kind of how I went with this. They say you can ease into it, but I just don't do well with that. So for me, it was easier to just go through yucky feeling, and then get through that and see the benefit. And it was amazing. Just the effect that it's had on my number on blood work and all those things. As we said, I haven't been in it long term, so I haven't seen my personal long term effects. Uh, so
You've
that's
been
something
doing
that you
it
can
for about
look
seven
into. Yeah,
months.
we counted it up to 7 months. The most of the weight loss was in the first 30 months, 3 months.
Three.
Sorry, the first 3 months, I had lost 25 pounds, and that was not following it as strictly as I am now. That was following it the basic guidelines of 30 grams or less carbs and eating your fats and proteins. Vegetables are completely okay as long as you eat approved vegetables on the list. If you need keto type lists, if you're not diabetic, I would suggest researching it. I've found 10 million places to get keto
Like approved food
recipes
list, yeah.
and keto food list and all that thing. So they're out there. It's completely popular right now. And like I said, the high protein, low fat's been around forever, and they're starting to now finally see long term results from it and the long term effects of it. Uh, to the point that in the group they share in my type 2 diabetes, reversing type 2 diabetes is a group on Facebook. If you're in the same boat as me with the type 2 and the metabolic syndrome, then you can look that up.
Or even just jumping in that group just to get the information, because it's like Dr. Jason Fung, is that the
Yeah, Dr.
doctor?
Jason Fung is mentioned a lot in the group, and I can't. There's another one that he's a scientist, and I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
But Fung wrote 2 books. One was called The Obesity Code. So if you're just dealing with metabolic syndrome and overweight, that'd be a good one to look at. And then the other one is sorry, the diabetic code. It's the
Yeah.
obesity code and the diabetic code. And they both have a lot of information on intermittent fasting, and he's a big proponent of that and what it does to the body, and its effects on both types of people. And even he says, in some of the interviews, you can see him on YouTube and doing interviews and podcasts and things like that. And a lot of what he's saying, he gets a lot of flack from the basic traditional doctors because it's not a medical treatment. It's a natural treatment in the way that you heal things in your body naturally rather than taking all the meds. And like I said, the meds don't really help you. In my experience, the meds are making it worse because it's just
It's
treating a
kind of like a
symptom,
band-aid.
and you're treating that symptom, but you're not fixing your body. And the only way to do that is to fix it naturally. In my opinion, like I said, I'm not anybody a specialist or a
Mhm.
doctor or anything like that.
So what all do you use? I know you had to buy, we purchased a glucose monitor for you that syncs with his phone. So he can basically see a trend from, a 7-day week trend all the way to a 90-day trend. And he was able to also shoot that information over to his doctor, and for his doctor to look at, a 3-month period time frame and, do that. But he also uses Carb Manager, which is that app he was mentioning earlier. It's a free app that you can get. There is a paid version, but that will also help you to see, one, counting those carbs, monitoring that sugar intake, and just making sure you're staying within your goals of the day. And like, I'm a big sweets person, and I mean, I could probably truly eat my weight in sweets. Like, I crave them. Did you find that with this diet, or way of eating, that it, like, curbed the sweet cravings?
Yeah, that's a good question. So early on, that's the hardest part of doing any kind of diet because it typically means reducing your portion sizes and how much you eat. Um, and that's hard for anybody because you're used to eating a certain amount all the time, and to transition and change that is hard. So through uh, the first week with that keto flu and dealing with that, it wasn't anything major. It was just the body's way of transitioning and changing. As I went through that, I started noticing that I kind of had some experience with sugar just
Mhm.
because of my diabetic state, right? My type 2. So I kind of knew what sugars, the effect on your body. And really, sugar is what gives you those cravings. Like when you get hungry, a lot of time your hunger pangs are coming from the sugar crave, the addiction to sugar. And for me personally, that was true. So after that first week, I'm going into the second week and I'm starting to come out and feel better and not as drugged down from the keto flu. And as I'm coming out of it, I started noticing that I really didn't have those cravings, and I really I didn't have hunger pains. Like, and that was weird to me. So I'm like, okay, is this normal? So of course, as I stated before, be your own advocate. Go look and see if this is normal. So I looked it up and through a web browser, and I started researching that information. Once I had joined that group, I go there for pretty much a lot of it because they're very open, and they're people just like me. That if you don't deal with diabetes, then you find something that works for you in a group or something like that that is dealing more with your situation. But in my situation, it really helped to have other diabetics there and hearing them go through their struggles and was this normal for them to really not be that hungry? Well, it was, and so for me, early on, I noticed that I didn't have those cravings, and like Shamika said, the sugar crave and the oh, I gotta have a sugar, I
Gotta
gotta have a
eat.
carb, I gotta
Yeah.
have something to bring my sugar back up, but actually you're bringing it down, and so those things were important to find out, and so through my personal experience, those cravings left, and it wasn't as drastic as I thought it was going to be to to add in the intermittent fasting. So through the initial process, I did the generic, what they tell you to do, under 30 grams of carbs, uh, eating approved foods. You're going to find approved foods through either this group, Reversing Type 2 Diabetes, or you can go to Google any web browser and look up keto type diets or ketogenic diets. And if you're not diabetic, I suggest that. But this is just through my own experience. So, but look up those things to see what they say you can have and what works for that way of eating.
And
But
then
from starting out that way, the first week or two, by then you're really like, it's so amazing. Like the results I got, we were both amazed and just
just the very next
she
day.
got so sick of hearing about my success with all the sugar levels and I'm not hungry
Like, that's so
anymore. And I'm like, she
great.
go, okay, great, but I'm hungry now. Cook something. And but so having that, and just seeing that and having such a drastic change so quickly, of course I researched more. And I got so into it, I was like, man, I got to look at more. I got to look at more. So I started getting into macronutrients. And if you've dieted or you're in this world at all, macronutrients are the basic nutrients you need to survive, and the proportions to what you need for the goal that you have. If you're a muscle builder, you're going to have different levels than I do because I'm just trying to lose the weight, kind of in a good pace because I'm trying to get my body right and get healthy that way first, right? You do need muscle training. You do need cardio for the rest of your body. There's other things that just a diet's not going to help. So those things you would research outside of this. But for me personally, this has been with all diet and no exercise. Um, it starts with the basic what they tell you to do. Then you go into macronutrients and studying that a little bit, so I can go into my Carb Manager app and set up the macronutrients to what I want personally, and it gives me those levels. So when I eat and I track my meals and I plug in my meals to what I ate that day, it will tell me what my calories and whatever you want to track. You can set up on there how you want to track it, and it'll tell you. So your sugar, your total carbs, or your net carbs. We go by total carbs, but it'll put all that on there for you. And I actually, I was in the habit of eating first and then plugging it in. So I was like, you know what, I got to start plugging it in first so I don't overshoot it. So I found that to be a lesson learned, is to plug your meal in that you want to have and see what it does.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very useful app.
Oh, and so going out to eat, I thought this was going to be the worst part, like with this whole thing. But we have like a local restaurant. It's called Blazers, and they serve hot wings. And so he can have like 10, the fried, wings, but it's not the deep fried, but it's not the breaded kind or anything like that. But the wings, like, that's perfectly okay for him to have. You can do the celery, and so like at Outback, it was basically like a steak and some type of vegetable that he did.
Yeah, we had steak. My plate had steak, the green beans.
Nice and the salad, the Cobb salad.
Cobb salad.
Yeah, so you can totally, like, you definitely don't have to, like, think, oh gosh, I can't eat nothing. you're not really as restricted as much as you are paying attention to those carbs and the sugar intake. And that was basically my two things that I look at whenever I'm doing the shopping every 2 weeks. I'm looking at the things like that, how many carbs does it have, or how many carbs does it have, and then how many sugars does it have? Does it have any added sugars? Those are the three things that you definitely want to take notice of whenever
And there's
you're.
hidden sugar
Oh
everywhere.
God,
So
yeah,
you have to look at non-processed stuff. That part of it.
it's
Like I said,
tough.
getting your head around it, the getting away from traditional medicine and what that traditional diet looks like.
But no
Uh,
breads, no
Going back and looking
grains.
at that, look at your contents on your labels, and if you're not sure before you get something, you can look it up online and look at the nutritional label on it, and try to get that information. But be careful of hidden sugars and things like that, because they will trick you. In my situation, being type 2, I eat to my meter. That's a big part of it. That's really the magic behind it, is watching your sugar meter and seeing what the food is doing to you. Because some people, an obvious question is, what about imitation sugars and sugar substitutes? Some of those are okay. Other people respond to them. Anything sweet, what I'm told is anything sweet makes your mind think it's sugar and can raise your insulin level, but it may not be to a point in you personally that it's worth the risk, right? It's worth having it to be able to have that something sweet flavored, that taste. We've been doing stevia. Some people respond negatively to stevia. They're sugar spikes. So you got to be careful of that. That's an individual thing. All of this is individual and what works for you and your body. But if you are type 2 diabetic, eat to your meter. And
Yeah.
the little thing they say to eat numerous times a day, small portions multiple times a day, does not work for a diabetic, because you're constantly putting yourself in and out of high insulin level to no insulin level, high insulin level to low insulin level.
Like
So you're putting yourself
peak.
on that roller coaster, and it's gonna make your A1C average higher because you're in and out so much. So be careful of that as a diabetic. It's not bad to fast, intermittent fasting. I haven't done a full fast. I've done 16/8, so I'll fast for 16 hours. That's 7 p.m. till 11:30 p.m. a.m. the next morning. My meals usually stop around
You
6.
did 24-hour, I think.
I do a 24 hour,
Yeah.
and Juju and I were messaging back and forth on this one, but they call it OMAD, is the acronym for it, just like WOE is for way of eating. If you're into fitness or health at all, you'll see those all the time and wonder what they are. OMAD is 1 meal a day. So I will do that, and I alternate between the two, and that just seems to be the thing that works for me. That more so happened recently. Most of the weight I lost, like I said, was eating 2 meals a day and following the below 30 carbs a day and eating on an approved food list. So most of my weight came off that way. Once I hit that threshold and I kind of plateaued, well, I started realizing, okay, my sugars are good, my carbs are good, my sugar's in the range I want it to be in on my meter. My A1C came back from an 8, within 3 months. My A1C went from an 8.5 to a 5.6.
Yeah.
In 3 months of just eating this way.
Yeah.
So it had nothing to do. Just eating this way. I dropped 3 points in my A1C. I lost at that time. I had lost 25 pounds in 3 months, which is still healthy. I mean, you're doing like a pound a week or so, and it was pretty healthy weight loss. As we went on, it ended up. Sorry, I got distracted by the comments.
I know. I was
Rookie.
I didn't realize we had more
Scroll down,
comments.
Shamika. Scroll
Yeah.
but as I went on, I realized that my weight had plateaued, and it wasn't my ideal goal. I wanted more, just because of the way that the metabolic syndrome affects your body. You got to get to a healthy weight for your height and your situation, right? So whatever health issues you're having, there's usually a weight associated with that. So I was trying to get to that. Well, then I found that, okay, I'm doing everything right, but I've plateaued. Now what? So then I go back online, I start researching it. I become my own advocate, and I go look this information up. And what I found was, you can be doing everything right, but you can be off in one of your macronutrients. So I was off. There's carbs, protein, carbs, protein, and fats, right? That's your macronutrients that you should be measuring your diet by. Well, my fats, I was intaking a little more fats than I needed to. And I kind of did that rookie mistake at the beginning where you read the approved food list and you just eat them all at one time like a
Like,
buffet.
I
No,
can have
that
all
doesn't
this.
work. But the fat did affect, I did plateau because of the fat intake. So then I just reduced my fat and up my protein to help start that process again and get that weight loss going.
And another thing I'll say is because it has been hard for me to completely transition into this. So I've done what Chris used to call the better than diet. So it's
That was my initial way of eating plan
right.
back before I found the one that worked.
Yes, and so I cut my sugars out. I don't have a ton of sugar now. And so like I'm a big soda drinker. And so y'all, I found these which work for me. It's 0 calories, zero artificial flavors, zero artificial aspartame, and zero sucralose, and it has a bold taste, and it's just like it works all the way across because what I noticed was with aspartame, it gave me really bad migraines. And so like just start slow, cut your carbs down a little bit. If you can't jump down to the 30, doing 30 carbs a day, start slowly. Pace yourself, because the more you pace yourself and you get kind of more comfortable, taking one thing out, taking another thing out the following week, you can kind of do that and just slowly kind of get this into your way of going. And I've definitely dramatically decreased the amount of sugars that I have. And I used to like snack like late at night, like I'd wake up and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I need something sweet, and I'd go for like a bowl of cereal or just anything I could find sweet. And so it was like those late night sweet cravings. And now I don't do that anymore, and I've done that for years. And so it definitely has changed. And I also notice I'm not as hungry as I used to be. Like he can go like almost all day and be like, we haven't really ate or something, and be like, gosh, we're not even hungry. And so you get to where you don't feel like you're just bottoming out, and a lot of times I've always called it like my sugar dropping, and I get that jittery feeling, and I feel like, oh my gosh, I gotta eat, I'm about to fall out. And so I don't do like that now as much, and I do pretty much well the 2 meals a day that he does. I may cheat a little bit and do like a snack or two here and there. For the most part, though, we do not, we don't snack or anything like that. It's just the 2 meals a day, and keeping it to like a protein, or you can even do fish. You can do steak. I mean, there's definitely tons of different options that you can do. And like I said, one time it was, what was it? Broccoli spiked his sugar.
Yeah, early on,
I was like,
early
what?
on, it would take my sugar. It wasn't an unhealthy like damaging spike, but it was enough that I wanted my levels at a certain place, and I had goals for
And that
that.
was just steamed
And
broccoli with
actually,
butter.
last night we had steak with Brussels sprouts,
Hmm.
and I ate a few more Brussels sprouts than I normally would. I try to stick to around a cup of vegetables, and if I have them, and so I ended up higher than I normally am, and it just amazes me how a vegetable can do that. So. But everybody's different. Everybody responds differently. Like I said, this is coming from a type 2 diabetic that found this to be the most advantageous way for me to get healthy. And
Hmm.
it's not only in my presentation or my looks, my body weight and all that. It's more even in my
Internal.
numbers, my internal numbers, to the point that my doctor was just floored. He couldn't believe that what he was looking at. Especially I've been with him for several years, 5, 6 years.
Yeah.
So especially with that, and him knowing me that well, knowing my history, and knowing how bad my numbers were getting and progressing to, because that's where it all started, was one bad number in my 40s, and it led to all the numbers being bad. So he saw that and was just really amazed by it, and was open enough to say, you know what, I'm willing to let you give this a shot. You've totally done more than I could ever do with medicine. So let's take a look at it. So like I said, these are immediate results. It's about 7 months in now, so I don't have the long term. I'll report back. I'm not going to lead you down a path and leave you hanging, but I will report back with any kind of long term things that may happen or come up, positive or negative. I'm going to be
Yeah.
honest. I'm open. I'm not going to lie about something. If I don't want anybody to do anything they don't deem as healthy. So as your own advocate, as we suggest you to be, uh, don't take our word for it. Research it, look it up. don't start anything without knowing what you're doing. Um,
Or fully
Fully
understanding it.
understanding what
Yeah.
it's doing to your body and those things. I am not an expert. Juju thinks I can write a book. I appreciate that, Juju.
Oh, yes.
Must mean I'm coming across for real, right? But I'm not sure if I'm that level yet. But I have research for myself, so I
A lot
suggest you
of
do the same
research.
thing. Don't trust anybody to take care of you. We're in a situation with Shamika's health and my health that I actually, that was one of the things that promoted me to do better was uh, who's going to take care of us. We haven't been blessed yet with children, so with MS and then me with my stuff, and I'm like, somebody's got to do something. So this was my way of kind of give us an insurance policy in case the kids don't happen, right? So um, one of us can suffer
Watch
through it
after each other.
and take care of each other. So. But as I said, I'm just a more of a do it all or nothing guy. Shamika's more of a gradual approach, and she is getting there. She's doing amazing with where she's at now compared to where she was, and but it is a difficult thing.
Yeah.
And like I said, I would not have been able to make this decision without her help and without my Savior Jesus Christ, because you can't do it alone. You got to have a solid foundation to do that with, and that was the only way because I was just such a food person. And throughout my childhood, I dealt with obesity and all that to the point of being taken to a fat camp, as I call it. And that's tough on a kid too, because well, I got to go to fat camp. So I just had that conversation with my dad. Hey, Dad, about what that did to my psyche as a kid, and he said, well, we just wanted to help you. We didn't want you to be in that situation, And I was like, yeah, I understand. And it did help because it gave me some of the foundation to get where I am now. So I appreciate that, Dad.
But also other things to just kind of take note. If you have high blood pressure, if you have problems with your sugar, I would invest in a glucose meter that you can sync directly to your phone. Download the Carb app, the
Carb
Carb
Manager.
Manager app, and also get you a blood pressure machine that's accurate and that you can trust. And then you can also, all of that, if you have it syncing together with your phone, it just empowers you as the patient going into your doctor and saying, hey, look, this is what I've been doing. These are the numbers I'm getting. What do you see from that? And you guys have that open conversation and dialogue, because that was one of the things when, like he was mentioning earlier, when I first got diagnosed with MS, it was basically, they told me two different scenario and options to be treated from. And one was a little bit more invasive, and one was like, it wasn't as I guess as serious of it wasn't as big of a risk. And so of course I went for the one that wasn't as big of a risk, but that was because I knew nothing. And they basically asked me, so what do you want to do?
Yeah,
And my thought was, you're the doctor, you're the specialist. Aren't you going to tell me that? Ain't that your job? And no, it's not. It's your life. You're the one who's going to have to walk this out every single day, and you got to live with it. And so that's why you have to start getting more comfortable with learning and just educating yourself, watching videos, podcasts, and just really building that up and learning a little bit more about whatever it is that you've got going on personally. But I think
I definitely
yeah.
don't want to condone something. If you feel something isn't right for you, then by all means don't listen to me. I'm just walking evidence of
It does work
what
though.
something can do. But there are so many things out there, and it may be something specific to your situation. But I guess I just wanted to come on and tell you to be your own advocate, as the way Shamika just said it, and to not be afraid to go outside the box. And there are alternatives to traditional stuff.
Right, to traditional medicine and taking pharmaceuticals. And I'm not against pharmaceuticals, because let me tell you, they have there's definitely been some that's helped me and make my life manageable and something I can do that, living and having a good quality of life. But you also have to weigh the options. And if you're having a lot of side effects from medications, or you're having to do a lot of extra like research with it, and like he was having to check his pill bottles and making sure it didn't have cancer causing agents in it, that's where you're like, okay, this is like a red flag. I need to look at this. And so just be more in tune and empowered with the things that you've got going on, so that way you when you go to your doctors and they're talking about or suggesting you to take something, you have some kind of leverage to fight back, or at least get his
Just to ask
full,
questions,
yeah, full thought process on it.
because that's the other part of it to go along with what she's saying is the medications are there to kind of get you through.
Yeah.
They're expecting you to get the diagnosis and take care of yourself.
Yeah.
But as a man, and as a lot of men that I know that I had experience with in these types of situations, we get the medicine and we think it's going to fix things, or we don't have to be concerned with it anymore because we're taking the medicine. And I'm not knocking traditional medicine; it is there to get you through it.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to take initiative and take care of yourself. Because my doctor always said, I mean, he pretty much said for me to do what I'm doing, but he didn't expect me to do it. And so through diet, through exercise, and through those things, he was expecting me to follow through and do my part. So his part is take the medicine to get you through to that level, and my part was supposed to be the exercise and the medicine, or diet or exercise, and I wasn't doing it. So uh, remember that the medication is just supposed to get you through to you being able to take care of yourself.
What was the test though that you've got to get done where it screens your body,
Well, that's
your
a
arteries?
calcium test for the arteries and the heart. But that's just strictly because he had it done and he
Oh
found some
yeah.
issues in his own. So here he was telling me all this that he felt really bad about it, guilty, because here he was coaching me through all this stuff, but then he ended up with issues. Well, it's just life. I mean, that's how things happen, right? So he wants me to get that done just strictly because he had it done and found something. So he wants to be clear since I'm not on the meds to make sure that all that is clear.
Yep. So I hope this was helpful, and do not hesitate to reach out to me or Chris, either one. If you have questions, or you have a question about a specific thing that maybe we didn't talk about or cover today, we would love to be able to answer your questions and help you out, because I know it's hard. It's a lot at one time when you're learning all of this and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And so anyways, it was just so awesome to be able to share, and you guys to take so much notice, and just be so supportive and encouraging with all of your amazing comments. We love it. I thought it was just so sweet, and that's what we need more of in today's world, is just to love on each other and to be there for each other and be each other's cheerleaders. And so anyways, we just want to say thank you, and we'll see you next time. I know we'll be on another time.
Sure.
I'm sure I can talk him
If you
into
can
it.
twist my arm.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll twist his arm some kind of way. So anyways, I hope y'all have an awesome Sunday, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.